She tried to trap me in divorce, but her plan backfired.
I suspected my wife was preparing a divorce, so I shifted my assets 2 weeks later. She filed, then backpedaled when her plan collapsed. Hello? Everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your support. We've noticed that the channel is losing momentum, and subscribing is one of the greatest ways you can assist us. It's simple, free, and allows us to continue producing quality content. Your encouragement means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you kindly. Now, let's dive into the video. Hello everyone, I've been browsing through the posts here for some time, assuming I'd never have my own story to share, but life has a way of surprising you, and I've been carrying this around for months. I need to release it, let me be clear. I've never been the sort to jump to assumptions or think the worst. My wife, let's call her M, and I've been together for 6 years and married for 4. Things seemed steady, or so I believed. We had the usual highs and lows, but nothing that made me think, oh, there's an issue here. In truth, throughout most of our relationship, we were that couple, completely devoted companions. We laughed at silly inside jokes, argued endlessly about what film to watch, and had a rhythm that simply worked. She'd arrange thoughtful date nights, and I'd bring home her favorite takeout after a tiring day. It felt natural, as if we had mastered the love thing, which is why what happened next hit me like a ton of bricks. The change, about 6 months ago, things began to shift. At first, it was minor details, things you might overlook if you weren't observant. She began carrying her phone everywhere, even when she was only going to the kitchen or folding laundry. Before that, her phone would sit on the coffee table for hours, and she didn't mind if anyone touched it one afternoon. I made a joke. "What, are you running some secret spy agency now?" She laughed and said, "No, work's been emailing me a lot." Okay, fine. But a few days later, she set a password. That one caught me off guard, since she had never done that before. When I casually asked why, she replied something vague about protection and hackers. I didn't press it, since I didn't want to seem paranoid, but it felt wrong, and it didn't end there. She began taking calls in private, which she had never done earlier. It wasn't discreet either. Her phone would ring, and she'd say, "Oh, let me grab this quickly," before vanishing into the bedroom. Or out on the porch, if I asked who it was, she'd just answer a coworker. Then, I noticed another habit, keeping her phone face down on the table. I didn't realize that was a thing until I reached over to hand her something, and she quickly slid the phone away. It was one of those blink and you miss it moments, yet it stuck with me, growing distance. But it wasn't only about the phone. She started feeling detached. Conversations that once flowed easily now felt forced. If I mentioned future plans like, where should we go for our anniversary? Or should we start saving for another car? She'd just nod and reply, "Yeah, we'll see," before changing the subject. It all came together for me on a random Wednesday. She told me she was meeting a friend for coffee after work. It didn't sound odd. She did that sometimes. I happened to be running errands nearby. So I thought, why not? Surprise her. It will be sweet when I arrived. Though she wasn't with her friend. She stood outside the cafe, pacing with her phone to her ear. I stayed in my car because something about her tone seemed serious. I didn't mean to overhear, but I caught words like, "It's almost ready," and "starting fresh." Soon, my heart sank. I couldn't figure out what she was talking about, but it didn't sound like work or a friend issue. It felt bigger, like something she had been arranging when she got home. I asked her how her coffee meet went, trying to sound casual. She told me a full story about her friend, complaining about her boyfriend. It was such a strange answer that I just stared at her for a moment. "What do you mean?" I asked. She shrugged. "I just think we should keep everything in one place, you know, like all our account details, passwords, documents, that sort of thing, just in case of emergency." I didn't know what to say. This was something we'd never spoken of before, and the timing was odd. Given everything else, I'd noticed what kind of emergencies I asked, attempting to keep my voice calm. She shrugged again. "It's just wise, isn't it? What if something happens to one of us, or we need to make a big financial choice quickly?" Her reasoning made sense on the surface, but something about her delivery made me uneasy. It was too rehearsed, too smooth, like she had been waiting for the right moment to bring it up. I nodded and muttered, "Yeah, I guess that's smart," but inside alarms were going off. Why now? Why suddenly? care about organizing our finances when we always kept them. Separate and casual that night, I replayed her words, trying to figure out what they meant. Was this just normal adult planning? And was I overthinking? But then I recalled the private calls, the chat I overheard at the cafe, and her recent distance. It all started to add up, and I didn't like the picture it created until then. I had done nothing about it. A few days later, she mentioned it again. We were in the kitchen. I was making a sandwich while she scrolled through her phone, when she said, "Have you thought more about arranging the bank stuff? Like, do you know where all the account details are?" I put the knife down and looked at her. "Okay, what's going on?" I asked, trying to sound light but firm. "You've been bringing up money a lot lately. Is there something we need to discuss?" She finally looked up, startled that I had pushed her on it. "No, nothing's wrong," she replied quickly, making me chuckle. "I just think it's important, that's all, for emergencies." "Emergencies? Like what?" I pressed her, her face unreadable. She shrugged. "I don't know, just life things. It's not a big deal. I promise. I just think it's something we should manage." Her response felt vague, too empty. I nodded and dropped it, but the way she avoided giving a clear answer made me even more suspicious. It no longer felt like a casual idea. It seemed like she was hiding something, but I had no clue what. So the next day, while she was at work, I decided to check our finances. I logged into our joint account and found something unexpected. During the last month, several small transfers had been made. Nothing huge, but odd amounts that didn't match bills, groceries, or anything typical. I didn't want to assume the worst, but it looked like she had been moving money for reasons I couldn't identify. I considered confronting her, but something told me to wait. If I was mistaken, I'd look foolish, and if I was right, I had to tread carefully. It gnawed at me. So I called someone I trusted, an old college buddy who's also a lawyer. I told him what I'd discovered, trying not to sound paranoid. "Look," he said after I explained, "I'm not saying something is definitely going on, but you're not crazy for wanting to prepare. If you're worried about your assets, now's the time to act better safe than sorry." He walked me through steps to shield my finances if anything happened. I'll admit it felt drastic, like I was preparing for something awful, even though I wasn't sure what. But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed logical. If she was really plotting something, and my gut said she was, I had to protect myself. It wasn't an easy choice, but this wasn't just about money or property. It was about the life we'd built together. I kept replaying our wedding day, our late-night talks, our silly jokes. How did it come to this? Was our marriage now just a countdown to betrayal? The thought of making those moves felt like giving up on the trust we once shared that night while she was out. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and reviewed everything: accounts, investments, property deed. Each document felt heavy like treason, but a steady voice in my mind reminded me, this is survival, not sabotage. I didn't intend to hurt her, but I couldn't shake the thought that if I didn't act, I'd regret it forever. I listed everything I could transfer and how to do it without drawing suspicion as I typed a weight pressed on my chest. I had trusted her completely, and now I was playing defense against the one person who should have had my back. I called my mom and explained vaguely why I needed her help. "I need you to hold on to some things for me for a while. It's nothing bad, just something I must do to protect myself just in case she went quiet, probably trying to read between the lines. Are you all right?" she asked. Her voice worried. "Yeah, I lied. It's just precaution. Nothing to stress." She didn't push, but I could hear the pause in her voice when she said, "Of course, sweetheart, whatever you need." I hung up with a mix of relief and guilt. I hated involving her, but knowing she had my back gave me some stability in the chaos. By the time Em came home, I had already started the process. I moved most of my assets, cash investments, even the house, into my mother's name. I kept enough in the joint account to look normal, but the rest was locked away. She didn't notice anything. She walked in, kissed me, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I looked fine, but inside I was wrecked. Part of me felt awful, as if I had betrayed her, but another part of me felt relieved that I had taken back control of something slipping from me over the next 3 days. I kept things ordinary. I didn't want her to sense anything. She seemed cheerful, even unusually warm at times, but instead of easing me, it made me more wary if she was scheming. She was hiding it well. What stood out, though, was that she never mentioned finances again. Not after I asked her last time. It was as if the subject vanished from her mind. At first, I thought maybe I had exaggerated and she dropped it since it wasn't vital. But then I realized she was avoiding it deliberately, almost like she didn't dare bring it up after I challenged her. I caught her glancing at me sometimes like she was gauging my mood, or considering saying something each time I noticed she'd quickly refocus on her phone, the TV, or a book, subtle. But there, I felt like she was waiting for me to mention it, as if she didn't want to push again. The silence only added to my unease. It wasn't like her to abandon an idea. She thought important the way she sidestepped it, felt intentional if she was waiting for a cue. She wasn't getting it, whatever her move was. I needed to be ahead, something was brewing. But I didn't know when or how. All I could do was stay prepared that night. I double-checked everything, making sure all documents were secure, the house, the savings, the investments, all legally in my mother's trust. I even called her to confirm she had everything. 2 weeks passed and everything seemed normal. Too normal. Honestly, she even acted more affectionate, bringing up small talk like work or dinner plans. It threw me because she'd been distant for months. Part of me wondered if I had misread everything. Maybe her behavior was just stress. But then one Friday night she sat me on the couch, turned off the TV, and said, "We need to talk." My chest tightened instantly. I knew what was coming before she spoke. "I think we should get a divorce," she said calmly, her voice flat like she was telling me we ran out of bread. I stared at her shocked as she explained she needed space, wanted to rediscover herself, and felt she'd lost her identity. Standard breakup lines that explained little. Then she said something sharper. "You know, I've made a lot of sacrifices for you, and I don't think you appreciate them. I deserve more." That part hurt. It wasn't just that she wanted out, she framed it like everything was my fault, and she was claiming her due as I sat there trying to process. She added, "A friend of mine has been helping me see things more clearly." She didn't look at me, a friend. I kept quiet, but my head spun. Who was this friend? Why were they so involved, the way she said? It didn't sound casual. It was like someone had been feeding her lines, urging her that leaving wasn't just a choice but a tactic. And the more she talked about sacrifices, the more doubtful I became. Sacrifices I worked hard to give her what she wanted when she asked to move closer to work. I agreed, despite my longer commute. When she wanted that expensive yoga retreat last year, I adjusted our budget and skipped the trip I had hoped for so she could go. I supported her career switches twice. I thought being a good husband meant prioritizing her happiness. I showed up, remembered dates, planned outings, listened to her vent. I wasn't perfect, but I tried, which is why I deserve more. Line cut so deep I didn't believe it. She wasn't leaving because of me. She was leaving because something changed in her. Maybe because of that so-called friend. But the woman in front of me wasn't the one I married, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite our past. I didn't argue. Instead, I nodded and said something mild like, "If that's what you feel, I guess we'll sort the next steps." She looked surprised. I wasn't begging, but I didn't care. My focus had shifted. I needed to know who was driving her sudden change. She hadn't just decided this overnight. This was calculated. After that, she moved to her own place. And by Monday I got divorce papers, and let me tell you, they didn't just want to end things, they aimed to take everything, half the house. my savings assets in the car, plus vague spousal support clauses. Despite her good salary, it was aggressive, and I was sure someone was advising her, so I checked her socials. She hadn't blocked me, and though she rarely posted, I noticed a man named Jake, often liking and commenting. Nothing overt, but enough to stand out. I clicked his profile, a marketing guy, 30-ish, scrolling through. I spotted he posted a pic at the same cafe where I'd overheard her weeks earlier. My gut clenched. More subtle hints followed a comment on her photo saying, "You've got this," and a selfie from what looked like her new place. None of it was hard proof, but it fueled my suspicion I couldn't just ask her. So I reached out to mutual friends. Lisa claimed ignorance and dodged the topic. Emily at first was vague, then hung up abruptly, which made me more suspicious later. To my surprise, Emily called back nervous, but eventually revealed Em had been close with someone named Jake from work, and he was deeply involved in her divorce decisions. Hearing his name fit the puzzle. Suddenly things clicked: the secrecy, the finances, the demands. She wasn't just unhappy. She was coached by him. I wanted confirmation. So that Saturday I parked near her new apartment hours later. She and Jake walked out together, not holding hands, but close enough talking intently. They got in his car and left. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. It was clear. She hadn't fallen out of love. She was building a life with someone else, and now everything made sense. The distance, the planning, the papers. She wasn't just leaving, she was trying to strip me of everything. And Jake was behind it. I went home burning, inside the betrayal. Cut deep. Not just because she cheated emotionally, but because it was premeditated. She wasn't just ending us. She was scheming to drain me for her new beginning. But she had no idea I had already prepared. The first mediation was tense. Her lawyer came armed with a thick binder laying out demands like they were perfectly fair. Half the house money, assets, car, and spousal support. I stayed quiet, waiting for my lawyer's move when it was our turn. He calmly handed papers across these documents. Show the transfer of all major assets into a trust. Under my client's mother's name, the transfers were finalized weeks before filing, and the trust is valid and irrevocable. The room went silent. Her lawyer's confidence shattered, flipping through notarized documents, nothing to dispute. He turned to her, frustrated. "You didn't mention this," he said flatly. She snatched the pages and skimmed them, her face reddening. "This can't be real," she whispered, staring at signatures and dates, then glared at me. "You planned this," she hissed. "You knew I was going to file, and you set this up to screw me over." I said nothing. My lawyer explained slowly with every detail that the transfers were legal and airtight. Their side had no counter. She was livid. "Unbelievable," she spat. Leaning forward, "I can't believe you do this to me." I stayed silent. What was there to say? I hadn't done this to her. I had done it to protect myself. The session ended with her lawyer muttering about needing a new strategy, but everyone knew they were out of options as we left. She pulled me aside, furious. "This isn't over," she whispered. "You'll regret this." I finally spoke. "I already regret trusting you." That's my only regret after mediation. She spiraled first. Came endless calls, voicemails ranging from tearful apologies to screaming accusations. One would say, "I made a mistake, let's fix this." The next would accuse me of being cruel, blaming me for her. Misery. I ignored it all. My lawyer warned me not to engage, and I had no desire anyway. When calls failed, she spread stories. Mutual friends told me she claimed the divorce was a prank or a test of our marriage strength. Her lies didn't hold up.